I think we can start now, right? Hello, everyone. This is Yusuf. I'm with the Wilson Center in Washington, D.C., and we're going to be talking about misinformation and disinformation in times of conflict today. I want to avoid word inflation, so I'm just going to use disinformation because it's too much to call it misinformation and disinformation. Again, good morning, and thank you for this great panel, and thank you to our esteemed speakers. We're going to talk about disinformation today, and obviously information as a concept has been central to war, to conflict, since conflict ever existed. But today, with our technology, with our digital world, it's much more prevalent, and it's much more dangerous and impactful to our daily lives. We're going to be talking about disinformation in the Middle East specifically. Obviously, it impacts all over the world, but there are specific things we want to talk about when it comes to the region, how it impacts the region, and essentially what we can do about it. We have a great panel today. We have Dr. Mohammed Abu Rumman, Associate Professor at Prince Hussein School of International Studies at the University of Jordan. He also served as Jordan's Minister of Culture and Minister of Youth. We have Bayan Tal. She is a media and communications expert with over 40 years of experience, and she served as the Director of International Media and Communication for His Majesty King Abdullah II, and later as the first female Director General of Jordan Radio and Television Corporation. We also have Dina Sadek, who's a resident senior fellow at the Atlantic Council's Digital Forensic Research Lab in Washington, D.C., and she leads research on malign foreign influence and disinformation in the region, in the Middle East. So I'm going to go ahead and start with our conversation. My first question is, what makes the Middle East unique in terms of disinformation, in terms of how we can counter it, and its impacts on the ground in terms of policy, in terms of how it impacts conflict regions where we have an abundance of those, unfortunately. So, Dina, if that's okay, I want to start with you.
First of all, it's really great to be here. Thank you to the Wilson Center for organizing this panel, and to my fellow panelists for being here, and thank you to the Razzaz Center for all of your efforts in organizing this event. Misinformation and disinformation in the Middle East. What makes it unique? That is a very, very interesting question itself, because there is no uniqueness about false information that deceives people. I think if we are talking about uniqueness, we can talk about how disinformation and misinformation in the Middle East is associated to particular events that are taking places right now in the region. So starting from October 1st, 2023, I can say that we have seen an all-time rise in misinformation and disinformation across the region and about the region in other parts of the world. This disinformation and misinformation does not only happen in Arabic, it does not only happen in the languages and the dialects and the areas that are impacted by it, but it has global impact because of all of the different various interested parties and what is happening in the Middle East and the conflicts that are escalating. Apart from conflicts, there's fair amount of misinformation and disinformation in the Middle East that's caused by democratic backsliding and less focus on press freedoms and that kind of thing. But the most important and impactful type of misinformation and disinformation that we're seeing right now in the Middle East is the type of misinformation that can have deadly consequences, which is in the conflict right now that has been active and unfortunately expanding to new parts of the region that I don't think that anyone in this room hoped that it would be expanding to. So this misinformation and disinformation, some of it is overall strategy based on the different actors involved in the conflict, and they promote information aligned with their worldview and how they would like to see policy implications. But there is also the incidental pieces of information about particular events that take place, such as a hospital bombing or return of hostages, and particular narratives happen around that ends up causing confusion among audiences and even leaders around the world.
Thank you so much, Dina. I'm going to turn to Dr. Abu Rumman with the same question. How do you see the Middle East in terms of its uniqueness in disinformation. What makes the region unique in terms of how we counter it, or if we can counter it? What are the impacts of it, and the future of the information atmosphere in the region?
Regarding the latest war in Gaza, I believe that it's a big transition, just biggest threat on media and propaganda policies and political commercial, because that war, when got underway, there was another media war starting. It was a war of storytelling and between Israel and Arab countries, and as we say in Amman, with our institute and other institute, in social media, though the active or those who use social media, we talked about uh, that most of those who participate in those social it was in English, and most of the users were supporting Israel, and most of the opinion were based on Israeli point of view, talked about killing children, and the same thing what President Biden talked about, and then later backtrack and say it wasn't true, and we saw that most of those accounts where Israel were used in India, or and was clear that Israel was getting into a media war, and after the 7th of October. In return, there was a opposition war from Palestinian and Arab countries, and they were able to make changes in the public opinion. You saw the surveys in U.S. that 50% of the youth within the U.S. were against the media message of U.S. and was so that means that there were with the military war there was the social media war, and another point is that after the Gaza war, after the development, we can say goodbye to professional media. There's nothing else we can say. Media freedom, press freedom, and even in West. I want to the thing that I talk about theory. You talked about Middle East. Before those systems that occur or existed in the world, they control media. That's why, and they were helping the government in supporting the street, and but then later, what happened? Yeah, press freedom changed. In the West, it changed. Well, in Arab countries, after Arab Spring, the controlling of media was out of control of the government, and was social media became the platform that the youth express their opinion, so it became a window to go away from the oppressed regime, and now the problem is the social media is mixed with the propaganda now. So right now, organizing or managing the opinion has become a policy. So instead of to control the information and control media, the opposite. The citizens are integrated into full of misinformation, propaganda, and different misinformation, and has become like when we talk about press freedom, yeah, this press freedom, it's become a way of controlling mind and thinking of people. And in Gaza was a changing of the side.
Thank you so much, Doctor. And Bayan, last but not least, I want to turn to you with the same question about what makes us unique in terms of disinformation, about media, how government approaches it. What are our problems that are not necessarily don't exist outside the Middle East, but are more prominent or less prominent here in the region? Please go ahead.
Thank you, Yusuf. Thank you, everyone. Hello, everyone. Thank you, Woodrow and the Wilson Center for the invitation. I would like to build on what my co-panelists said, which is, and focus on 2 points. How this, the genocide in Gaza and how it has impacted information flow as well as freedoms. We have 2 issues to deal with, the increase in misinformation, disinformation, and how Western mainstream media assisted and justified the war in Gaza, as stated by UN Special Rapporteur Francesca Albanese, who is also calling for an investigation into the role of Western mainstream media in the war on Gaza. The second point is how it has impacted freedoms of expression in the West, and how people are in the West, and especially in the United States and other Western countries, journalists are being canceled, besides being killed, of course, in the West Bank, Gaza, and Lebanon. At least more than 200 journalists have been killed in this war, more than any other conflict in history. It is also undermining free speech of artists, academics. Protests are banned in the West because pro-Palestinian, of course, and anti-Zionist. The media has carried and accepted, as Dr. Abu Rumman stated, the Israeli narrative and promoted it across this this conflict. I believe the fact that there are 2 positive points out of this. Number 1 is the rise in new players in the media, journalists, very young journalists, content creators, and influencers who had a key role to play in promoting the actual Palestinian issue with a context which was absent in Western media. The second point is the fact that we started appreciating and understanding the suffering that is taking place in the West Bank, the ugly occupation, Israeli occupation, and the ethnic cleansing and genocide taking place against the Palestinians. So there's a lot of more understanding in the West about this issue. What we need to do, if I may just go into what is needed at this point, if we go back to the issue of disinformation, misinformation, it's like scientists have drawn an analogy between misinformation and viruses, because when you say a lie or a misinformation went viral, so they are creating, they believe that to grow immunity in the public would be through media and information literacy skills. And that is how you immune people against the virus. And some would carry the virus and spread it, and that is what's happening with misinformation. A lot of people just spread the misinformation. Others would be carriers, but silent carriers. They don't play a role, but they are spreading it anyway. And you have those who are immune and would stop it, end it right there. So the immunity needs to rise in the public from 10 to 20 to 50 to 90%. That is what's needed now. And this is something that we can talk about later in detail, because, yes. Okay.
I'm going to follow up with a question about media literacy after my question to Dina right now, actually. I want to turn to you. We've talked about Gaza, Israel, October 7th, and there's the Syria component right now, and there's a lot of disinformation or propaganda about that online, on mainstream media too, not going to lie. So I want to ask you, your work focuses on digital forensic work. You look at, you analyze operations, you analyze online coordinated attacks, if you will, if that's the right terminology. So I want to ask, what has been your experience with regards to the Middle East in the past couple of years when it comes to examples, actual examples that have occurred online, whether it's state actors, non-state actors, because both are involved, let's be honest. And it's not just one single state, it's numerous states, numerous actors are involved in this, one against each other, using information as war. So please go ahead.
Thanks, Yusuf. I would say since October 7, my colleagues and I were monitoring conversations on several social media platforms, and I can tell you that the first perpetrator of misinformation and disinformation are average users like all of us, because during times of uncertainty, it is human nature sometimes to speculate, and some people are more susceptible to believing that information than others. Average users online on social media platforms are not as careful as we would like them to see. And confirmation bias is very well and alive. People tend to go online, and even on traditional news stations and newspapers, people tend to seek news and information that already aligns with their worldview and what they like to see in the world. So I would say that played a big factor, specifically in misinformation. But I will add to that part of the misinformation that's being shared is some unwitting users who do not know that what they're sharing might be false, but other users share that information just in case it's true. I want more people to know about it, and that's not necessarily, the best practice. But that was the first thing that happened after October 7, which caused a lot of confusion about how event transpired, who is involved, and what may happen next. State actors. In this particular conflict, we have seen a lot of effort from the Israeli government utilizing social media platforms to promote its own views and also narratives about the war. And we have seen that utilized mostly in the platform X. And there's a number of social media accounts that the Israeli government operates its narratives through. We have also monitored Hamas's activity on Telegram, which has shared fair amount of also propaganda narratives and violent narratives that tends to be sensational to kind of also get a rise of people in an already critical and volatile situation. Those are not the only two actors involved, I would remind. As I said, there's disinformation about this particular conflict in all of the languages that you can think about. We have seen it even in Spanish, where it's so far from the region that when you think about the actors involved, they're not always the ones that you might be thinking of, and even state actors work through private firms in order to promote their propaganda, in order to maintain their plausible deniability, and the attribution for those types of disinformation or smear campaigns is very difficult and unique, making it even more difficult to hold accountable the perpetrators of disinformation, whether they are state actors or non-state actors hired by state actors, or non-state actors just amateurs online like to promote their own disinformation.
Thank you so much, Dina. And building on that question, your answer, my apologies, I want to turn to you, Doctor, and because since you have a lot of experience in the government, you have experience in regulation to a certain degree, I want to ask your perspective. And you, when responding to your first question, painted a relatively grim picture about the social media and how it impacts how we receive information. So yes, there is the regulation component, and there is always this criticism that governments are relatively slow to respond to the changing technologies, how people use those technologies. So I want to ask you, how much truth there is to that criticism to governments regulating, and also how should, in general, governments respond? Because the digital world is, how much you want to control it, it's very hard to actually regulate it to the degree that you want to address issues to the fullest extent.
I believe in after the Arab Spring, they they made a lot of importance of the priorities as a use of social media. As you know, I don't talk about pager. It's revealed that iPhone is the most dangerous weapon on the hands of Arab people, because that iPhone it broke down all the political games and changed all the power balance in the region. You look at now, all the Arab countries. But in a short video on social media, you might have 60 million views, and Arab countries they understand so that the relations with social media should be controlled, should be regulated, but when they came into social media, they treat it badly. They try to limit it, but they didn't know that social media is the future of this region. That you cannot limit it. Another side is Arab countries, and we saw in Gaza war, all the media platforms and social platforms, every country was supporting the country's position, but the press freedom. I saw even TVs like channels like Arabiya, Al Jazeera, they use the same guests, they use same views, they talked about same. We can say that Gaza war was the final goodbye of professional media. It was more propaganda tools instead of professional media. In Arab world, social media came like a flood, and it affected the people and public opinion a lot. And and they made social army, and that means the government make fake accounts so it could benefit the government. And I believe that social media has a big influence and it's a big threat. And on the negative notes on Gaza war is and on X and Telegram, it's a story you might know better than. For example, if you release or publish something to support Gaza, war, X will block it or Telegram will block. There's a youth generation right now that sees that U.S. even put limitation on some of the stories that have been. So that's the youth will not believe that anymore. And the truth, media freedom or press freedom, instead of being seen as a democratic tool, but the Arab countries and the people believe that those freedom are not true, and those countries who defend democracy themselves block those stories and those posts. And this another thing is that it makes the extremist view more influence on youth. That's why the influence of social media is very big.
Thank you so much. Sorry. Thank you so much, Doctor. I appreciate you saying that, the extremist comment, and I want to turn to Bayan with that actually, because you mentioned media literacy, and you mentioned in general what we can do about this whole issue, but what's happening right now? Youth should be the main target. Maybe, I'm not sure, but I feel like youth should be the main target of media literacy, starting from a young age, I guess. But I feel like with AI emerging now, because Doctor mentioned videos that are being watched 50, 60 million times, but you can't even tell if they're real or not. Like, even if it was real, they could be disinformation. But now you can make videos basically and post it on your accounts. Even politicians post AI-made accounts nowadays that are weird. But I want to ask your opinion about how we can approach that with media literacy. Is that going to be at least sufficient?
Yeah, thank you so much. Okay, I think now just for everyone, media literacy is basically teaching people how to consume media and how to produce media ethically and positively. It's based on 5 components: accessing media, where to look for the information, go to the right sources, analyzing media, understanding the messages and who created that message, why was it created, how is it impacting me, how do I understand it, and how each person understands the message differently based on our convictions, our values, our culture, our environment, and reflecting on the media. Reflecting means being more compassionate, more understanding, and producing media, which is extremely important. Creating media is extremely important, especially for young people. It gives them the power to be active players in their own communities. It also counters the negative and radical media, that radical material that is there that Dr. Abu Rumman mentioned, which would be producing media that is positive, that is not racist, that does not contain hate speech, that is more about realities. And the last thing is act. To act means to be part of their communities, to use that space, whether it is social media or other platforms, to create change in their own communities. So these skills in Jordan have been introduced into textbooks. Jordan is changing textbooks and has been for the last few years. And what we're doing, I'm leading a team of experts who are integrating all these skills into the new textbooks. We also have units in some books about media and information literacy. So creating a generation of critical thinkers is extremely important for any society. That's part of the solution, introducing media literacy into schools. And I think we're the only Arab country that has done that. And we were asked by the Arab League to actually help other Arab countries integrate and introduce media literacy into the, not just education, because we have a strategy that was adopted by the government, and it's based on 4 components: introducing media literacy in schools, universities, youth centers, and the public sphere. Now, the second component is the government. Governments play a key role in this. We would not have been able to do this and get that far without the cooperation of the government, which would be the Ministry of Education and the National Center for Curriculum Development. The second component is civil society. Civil society is very strong in Jordan. And I started the program in an academic organization, the Jordan Media Institute. And we have members from civil societies here, women who are leading organizations like Samar Al-Haj Hassan, who heads the National Center for Human Rights, Rasha Fitian, who heads the partner in this conference, the Politics and Society Institute, Dina al-Bashir, who is a member of the Jordanian parliament. This is her second term. So civil society is critical in advocating for these skills, for media literacy. And without all this, there can never be, without free speech, there can never be all this. We need to raise the level of freedom of expression and make sure that people are able to express themselves freely without fear. We need free media because the public has lost trust in media. And especially in most Arab countries, media is owned by the state, the government. We have very few independent media organizations, but they also continue to be censored by governments. So introducing independent media is key. Otherwise, we will not be able to promote the narrative or the real issue of the suffering or the occupation without having professional media. Because there are people who my concern is, think that media is about propaganda, which is very critical, very serious, and that media employees feel that they are public servants or members of the government, and that is not healthy. I try to promote public service media, but it's becoming increasingly difficult, even in the West, in organizations that have, in the countries that have public service media. The public service media in the West played another critical role promoting the genocide in Gaza and failing to play their role as independent and professional.
Thank you so much, Bayan. And for time's sake, I want to turn to our audience for any questions that they may have. And please, if when you do ask a question, let's keep it as a question and not as a comment. Thank you. The gentleman in the gray jacket over there.
Good morning. Thanks for this panel. I'm from KTB Media Committee. I have a general question, if you accept it. This dear guest talked about the press freedom and all those mix and the effect of social media and misinformation in Gaza war. I have a request from our dear guest and from the media outlets as well as from their countries. As you know, just visit those locations that that Daesh caused. A lot of people lost their life because of Gaza. Genocide happened. Real genocide happened. Which was well known until now. My question is. دەتوانی پرسیارەکە دووبارەکەیتەوە بەس پرسیارەکە my question. I want to ask how those how those social media or social how they affected the way they talked about the genocide that happened against the ISIS in this through the social media.
Would you like? Yeah. I can just. ISIS.
Yeah.
Not an expert on ISIS. What I can say is the ISIS era, I would say, it should have been a huge lesson for us to learn from, for a few different reasons. Number one, when ISIS would take over a region, the first thing they did was change textbooks. It was all about education. They would change textbooks so they would change minds and be more in control. They were very active on social media, and they knew how to get to young people through videos. They created songs. They were really good, really good. And they were recruiting Jordanians. We had an issue with ISIS. They were recruiting Jordanians online through these methods. They were using the tools of social media. We did not learn from that because we still have education systems that do not promote critical thinking and didactic learning that does not correspond to the challenges that these children face on a daily basis when they go home, when they walk in the streets, when they go online. They have to be, we have to make a huge revolution in education to be able to challenge all this.
Thank you so much.